Welcome back, guys, and if you guys are new to this channel, welcome. Today we're going to talk about hip thrusts. Later on, I'm going to walk you guys through on how to set up for hip thrusts at the gym, how to do it properly, my personal preferences on how I like to do it, as well as the most common mistakes that you could be doing, especially when you're new to doing hip thrusts. This way, you're really able to target your glutes properly and you're able to maximize not only your time at the gym, but all the effort that you're putting to grow your glutes. The hip thrust was made popular by the glute guy himself, Brett Contreras, who has done so much extensive research on how the hip thrust is actually king and is the most conducive when it comes to growing your glutes. Hip thrusts are actually... Let's do it again. Through his research, he's actually discovered how hip thrust actually outperforms and outweighs deadlifts and squats when it comes to glute activation and glute growth. Our glutes are activated to a much higher degree when they're at end range hip extension, when the muscles are at short muscle length. There are a ton of ways to incorporate hip thrust into your glute training or into your leg day. For one, aside from the regular classic hip thrust, you could also do them single-legged. You could also do them hip stands, and at the same time, you could do them with a kettlebell, with a dumbbell, with a Smith machine, or with a normal bar with plates loaded on both sides. Before anything else, I want to show you guys two things that have helped me so much when it comes to hip thrusts. First off, it's actually grabbing your own barbell pad. I personally like to bring my own, not only for hygienic reasons, because I do know that a lot of gyms sometimes don't have one, or if ever, they'll have like the blue Airtex pad or something like that, but at my gym they do have ones, but they're always so banged up. There's barely any cushioning left, and that's a big no-no when it comes to protecting your hips and avoiding bruises. Here is mine, but you could basically grab them anywhere online now, but I did get mine from Amazon, and it's so easy, it's affordable, it's not even that expensive. So if you're really into glute training and into hip thrusts, you could actually think about investing in one. Number two, I also have my own hip circles or resistance bands. I use them every leg day, and now I train glutes 3 times a week as well, so it's just a great investment as well. I use them during my pre-activation or my glute activation work, my actual workout, as well as when I'm done and I'm just trying to burn out and do sets that really pump the glutes up. I always use and add bands when it comes to any variation of hip thrust because it adds more torque, but I can explain more about that later on. Just as reference though, I do have two, and it's simply because they both have different resistance. One is slightly longer than the other. I have this orange grippy one, which is pretty dang old and pretty banged up. It's from MB Slingshot. You can buy them online, and I'm pretty sure you can get them on Amazon US as well. And I also have a second one, which is a bit newer and I would say a little less banged up, but it's from the brand Peach Bands. And for you guys, and for all of you guys who are actually from Canada, this is actually pretty great because they are local, so you guys don't have to pay customs if you do decide to purchase from their website. So without further ado, let's head on to the gym and I'll show you guys everything from step 1 up until the end.
First off, you want a stable flat surface and a bench or box that allows you to rest your mid-scapular or the bottom of your shoulder blades onto the box's edge. Bench height is important because you want a setup that allows your shins to be vertical and perpendicular to the ground at a 90-degree angle to maximize glute activation. Having it too close engages your quads more, and having it too far out engages your hamstrings. When it comes to how far apart your feet should be or stance, it'll honestly vary from person to person. For example, Brett Contreras says that while he doesn't feel glute engagement as much with a wider stance, for others this is actually where they feel it best. So definitely experiment which works for you with mere body weight before adding on heavy weights. I personally like mine just slightly wider than shoulder width stance, with my feet slightly tilted out at about 15 degrees and my hip circle band on. Now that we're all set, let's move on to adding weights onto the bar by adding plates on both sides. You want the barbell and the barbell pad to be directly in the center of the bar, allowing for even weight distribution. Also make sure that you have the plates securely fastened for safety. I'm also particular about the height of the box because our back only serves as a pivot point. We don't want our back to be sliding out of place during the movement. Inhale, take a deep breath, bracing your core, tightening your abs, obliques, and diaphragm muscles as you push through your heels, keeping your chin tucked in, your rib cage down, and maintaining a posterior pelvic tilt. Make sure that you're also pushing through your heels and not through your toes, as this shifts muscle activation away from your glutes and hamstrings and onto your quads instead, which is something we don't want because our main target is our glutes. This is also the main reason why I also wear Keds and Converse for hip thrust and leg day in general versus other runners like probably Air Maxes or Roshis, because you really want a flat surface. Also make sure to maintain a forward eye gaze. This also ensures a posterior pelvic tilt and prevents anterior pelvic tilt. Let's see that again, without the weight, without the other plates, and just the bar. Similar to what we did earlier, make sure you use the glutes to push your hips as high as possible with each rep, not skimping on range of motion and making 3/4 reps unless that's your specific intention. You want to reach a full extension, pausing at the top for 2 to 3 seconds with a big glute squeeze before lowering the weight back down. This increases TUT, or what they call time under tension, and ensures proper control throughout the movement. The reason why I also like to add bands is because this allows for double duty, or what Brett Contreras calls doubling the torque. As bands will naturally pull our knees in, adding bands allows our glutes to put more work to keep our knees out as we simultaneously use our glutes for hip extension.
In this video, I'm also going to quickly run by you guys the most common mistakes that people do when it comes to doing hip thrusts.
Number 1, and the most common thing I see at the gym, is looking up and not maintaining a forward gaze. Again, you want your gaze to be forward when your chin tucked. To prevent any strain or injury, make it a point to assure that your neck remains in a neutral position throughout the movement and shouldn't be going around as you make the move. Number 2 is not being aware and conscious that your shin is no longer vertical and perpendicular to the ground. As I mentioned earlier, to effectively target our glutes, as a simple rule, we would want to maintain a 90-degree angle when it comes to our leg. That way, we're really targeting our glutes and not other leg muscles. Number 3 is using your toes to push the weight up instead of your heels. When we use our toes to push the weight up, we are no longer engaging and using our glute muscles. So be conscious of using and driving through your heels instead of your toes. Keep your feet flat and drive through those heels. Last but not the least is insufficient hip extension or range of motion. What's great about hip thrusts is that it's also easy to be able to carry heavier loads with it. But if you find that you're unable to maintain a full range of motion or hip extension, lighten the weight. Don't ego lift. Sometimes it can also be due to tight hip flexors, so make sure to warm up well before.
Now that I've shown you how to properly do a hip thrust and the most common mistakes that you should be avoiding and you should be conscious about, nothing is going to stop you guys from properly doing hip thrusts and maximizing your glutes. When it comes to hip thrusts, as with all major lifts, you really want to make sure that you're incorporating progressive overload. I talk more about progressive overload in my previous video, The Beginner's Guide to Fitness, but in general, progressive overload is simply learning and pushing your body to lift heavier, heavier, and heavier. For example, if you're able to hip thrust 100 pounds this week, you could try and challenge yourself next week to do 110 pounds, 120 pounds, 130, so on and so forth. You can incorporate progressive overload by simply putting in more weight or being able to manage more reps or sets. When I first started doing hip thrusts, I'm pretty sure that all I could manage was about 80 pounds, and I started off doing it using a preloaded barbell and adding in my barbell pad and really using a lot of dumbbells to properly do it. Fast forward to a year and a half or 2 years after, and I'm able to do 245 for about 8 to 10 reps easily, and it just goes to show that our muscles actually, if you push them, they're able to grow bigger, and as they grow bigger, stronger, you'll be able to lift more weight. I personally love hip thrusts. I'm so glad that I discovered it a little bit earlier on, and right now it's just an absolute staple when it comes to my glute training and when it comes to leg day. So be patient when it comes to doing hip thrusts. Try to master it first with a much lighter weight before you try on heavier weights, and that way you're being safe and you're really engaging your glutes. I hope you guys found this video very helpful. Let me know down in the comment section down below if you guys sort of want a similar video to other lifts, maybe for deadlifts or maybe for squats. Let me know. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe as well so that you guys never miss another video from me as soon as it comes out. With that aside, I wish you guys a great week, and until next time.